Howdy, 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 howdy. Alright. So, sitting here at the mill, waiting on flour. The mill went down. Probably going to be here for a few hours. That was a poem. Accidental poem. Good stuff. Alright. I figured I'd make a video. There was one I was kind of thinking about for a few days. Okay. I got a frog in my throat because if you know anything about Salt Lake City, it's a thing called inversion. And sometimes we'll have a storm and it'll bring in, I guess, this layer of air that sits over the valley, and it keeps all the pollution in the valley. There's like quarries, there's refineries here, and then obviously everybody driving. So this stretch of I-15 that goes down through the valley from like Ogden or Brigham City all the way down to like Provo, which is like 80 miles or something, is just packed with smog. And it's getting to me. It's been here for a couple of days. And, you know, we'll eventually get like a snowstorm, probably here soon, that blows it all out and it's clear again. But it's messing with me bad today for some reason. So anyway, apologies for that if you hear me go a couple of times. Flatbed trucking. Pros and cons. It's a good job. I haven't looked up to see like what the pay might be like now, but when I first started driving trucks, flatbed was my first actual truck driving job. And it was about $50K a year then. I'll get rid of this eventually. And like it's a good job in a lot of ways, and then in some ways it kind of sucks, but not all the time. So if you're looking to get into flatbed trucking, I figured I'd talk about it a little bit. My first job with flatbed was Melton Truck Lines, which they're out of I think it's Tulsa, Oklahoma. They do have terminals all over the place. There's one in Birmingham. There's one up in, I think it's, I don't remember, but it's in Ohio. Somewhere in Ohio. Yorktown, something like that. And then there's Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's one in Laredo, Texas. I'll talk about that a little bit. And there's another one somewhere. I can't remember. But yeah, it was a pretty good company. You know, Melton was actually really good about a lot of things. Dispatch was actually awesome. They always communicated with me as much as they could, and making sure that I knew where I was going and all that, and having all the info I needed. The orientation for Melton was, I'd say it was about a week, maybe 5 days. And they take you out there, they'll train you on flatbed on how to strap down loads, which is very important in flatbed, because if you don't strap down loads properly, you could kill yourself or somebody else. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. They didn't have a bonus when I was there, but they might now, like a sign-on bonus. Trucking sign-on bonuses are never really sign-on bonuses. You don't get that money. It's more like a retention bonus that pays out over a year. That's how it always works. But yeah. How was that? I lost my train of thought there for a second. I got a text and it confused me. But yeah, the orientation's not bad. And then once, you know, I had just started driving. I drove for the Army for a while, but I wasn't used to really driving a whole lot. So they did put me in training with somebody for, I think, about 2 weeks. And we rode together. It wasn't a team driving situation. We would do normal shifts. And, you know, if we needed to go a little extra further, he would drive just to get us a few hours further down the road and extend the day a little bit. But yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, it was a double bunk bed, so we slept in the same truck, but I slept on the top bunk. That was about it. And then when they turned me loose, I was out, I think, 21 days at a time. And then I had the option to either stay out longer or I would go home. I think it was something like that. Typically, I would stay out the whole time. There was a period where I was out for like 3 months straight because I was trying to make extra money. But that's about it. I got home once a month for a few days. I mean, it's over the road trucking. That's how it is. Melton is the company I saw every single state with in 1 year, except Hawaii and Alaska. But every other state I went to at least once or twice, which is pretty cool. And what do they haul? Everything. Now Melton, I didn't haul a lot of lumber with Melton, but I hauled steel a lot, like steel coils and copper coils, aluminum coils, like coils. And they're not hard to strap down. If you're hauling steel, you can kind of strap it down with chains, however, because it's steel. Aluminum, you use chains, but you have to pad the chains too, so it doesn't screw up the aluminum, because it'll bend it. Other than that, it was all kinds of random stuff. Like I hauled, I don't know what they're called. You ever go by a field and you see this giant long sprinkler that's got like a wheel on it and it can turn? I hauled one of those that was in pieces. I hauled all kinds of stuff, like beams, like girders and stuff for like warehouses. Air conditioners, air conditioning units, like industrial ones. Hauled those a lot. But yeah, it's not bad. I mean, strapping down wasn't bad usually. What got annoying was tarping. Melton tarped everything, literally everything. It didn't matter what it was. I tarped barbed wire one time. They just tarped everything, and I guess it was for like an insurance kind of thing, to make sure that nothing got damaged. But they just made you tarp everything all the time. The thing is, the tarps are kind of heavy. They can be about 80 to 90 pounds, 100 if you got a thick one. And you got to pick it up over your head, throw it on the load, and then get up on top of the load, a lot of times without any fall protection. And, drape the tarp down, and then you use bungee cord to secure it. So I got pretty good at tarping, but it still got on my nerves if it was ever really like windy or rainy. If it's raining or windy, forget about it. You're going to have a bad day. It's annoying. Because rain adds weight to the tarp and it makes it slippery. And if it's windy, it's a tarp. You're holding a giant sail, man. There's one time in Illinois I had tarp down a load, and I got a couple of bungees down on there, and some gust of wind blew. Literally so hard it broke the bungees and threw the tarp off the load. I had to go get it, drag it back up there, refold it, and then get it back on top of it. It's so much work. So much work. And then, my God, Melton had a terminal in Laredo, and I used to haul Freightliner truck frames out of Laredo. And they would go back to North Carolina when I go home. And I used to have to tarp those. Tarping in Laredo in the summer, that is heat stroke imminent. It sucks. It's like 100 degrees out there. And in Texas, it's extra hot because it's super humid. So it got on my nerves. But yeah, I was with Melton for that year in 2018 up to 2019. I traveled a lot. I went to every state. I kind of liked the work. It was it kept me in really good shape. The thing is, and was the ultimate reason I ended up leaving Melton, was Flatbed. At least with that company, it might be different depending on what you're hauling, but it's very seasonal. In the summer and spring and like early fall, I made really good money. I was always running. I was going. I never had to wait for a load. Like I might wait a few hours to get a new load. That's it. In the winter and the late fall, I would wait because a lot of that stuff just wasn't going on. It was a whole lot of construction stuff, and construction slows down when it gets colder. So it sucked, and I wasn't making a lot of money. Yeah, they had layover pay, but that's a fraction of what you'd be making if you're moving, because I got paid by the mile. There was a time, Thanksgiving, I ended up having to go to Laredo during Thanksgiving, and I sat there almost a week because it was Thanksgiving. Nobody was open. They couldn't get loads. And I was like, why can't you just give me one of those Freightliner frame loads and let me take it, and I'll take it home and then deliver it? But they wouldn't do that because it was like 4 or 5 hours away from my home. All right, fine, whatever. But yeah, that's ultimately why I left, because it was too seasonal. I wasn't making enough money. And I started looking for, oh God, what's this dude gonna Don't come talk to me. Ah. All right, fine. Hold on.
Be a little while.
Yeah.
The mill's out right now. We have enough to put his load up. It's gonna be a minute. It should be up in about 45 minutes in the mill, so we're still on that team.
Okay.
28. So I'm losing my voice. I need to get sick. What's the tractor?
1126.
Watch date?
The 31st.
What is it? 31st?
Yeah. Sounds like it's in the 32nd. No, that doesn't work.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, you got the other peppers, right? Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay. I started looking at a regional. Melton didn't have any regional stuff, and they didn't have a guaranteed pay program. So I started looking for regional jobs, and a lot of those had guaranteed pay. And this was back in like 2019, so this was okay money back then. Now there's no way. But I found a company out of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is not, it's a few hours away from where I live. And they did Southeast Regional, and it was $1,000 a week guaranteed pay. But the pay per mile was around the same as what I was making at Melton. So that was Blue Max Trucking out of Charlotte. Got in with them, and I started pretty quick with them, and they gave me this really cool. Oh, with Melton primarily has Kenworth tractors. Back then it was T680s. It might be whatever it is now. Really nice trucks. Nice trucks. To this day, it's my favorite truck. So Melton, they had inverters and fridges and TV connections in their trucks. If that's important to you, it is to me. If it's an over-the-road truck, I'm gonna want all my conveniences. So Melton had all that. They had the inverter and everything, and a microwave connection. And so did Blue Max. Blue Max had all that. And also they gave me a Mack Anthem. It was a 2019 brand spanking new. There's actually a video on my channel. The very first video I posted on here was when I got that truck. The Mack came with the most comfortable bed I've ever had in a truck. It was super comfortable. And also they had the inverter, they had the TV mount, and the fridge. I wasn't a fan of the Mack fridge because it pulled out like a drawer, and I'd rather have the one that opens like a door. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, the Mack was a really awesome truck. It's the best driving truck I had. The Kenworth was nicer, but the smoothest driving truck I've ever had was the Mack Anthem. Super smooth. But yeah, I liked it a lot. That's the truck. As far as the work that I did with Blue Max was obviously regional. It was only Southeast. As far north as I would go was Virginia. I did have to go to Maryland once. I had to go into Baltimore, and it was a freaking nightmare. Anytime I went near DC, it was a nightmare. But mainly I was going down to Florida and back. Every once in a while I'd end up over in Tennessee or Alabama. But their biggest customer was something Hardy. They made Hardy board, which is, I guess, flooring. And that was in Florida and Virginia, and that's mainly where I went. So I was in Florida a lot. It was down near Tampa, so I was on I-75 most of the time. Every once in a while I'd go out through Orlando. Orlando's a nightmare with traffic. But yeah, with the tarping also wasn't that bad. They hauled a lot of lumber. If I didn't go to Florida, I was probably going to be hauling lumber. The thing about lumber is, if it's warm when you strap the lumber down, I didn't know this at first, but if it's warm when you strap the lumber down, and then it gets colder overnight, you have to tighten the straps because the lumber actually shrinks a little bit. I didn't know that. So when you take the tarps off, if you're moving, the lumber will actually come out. I have a video about that on a really early video on this channel. It didn't break anything. I was going really slow, but if I'd been going fast, it would have been a nightmare. But yeah, you gotta make sure you change the tightness with the temperature if you're hauling lumber. Which, that's crazy. I didn't know that. But yeah, that and Hardy board was about the only thing I really hauled with Blue Max. But they were pretty good company. I mean, I got home each weekend. I was only out Monday to Friday. I was off on Saturday and Sunday. And if they wanted me to take a longer load, say to like Alabama and get home on Saturday, they would always ask me. They never like just sent me. They were like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, I get some extra miles and get some extra money. There were two reasons I ended up leaving Blue Max. Was one, I was just straight up just looking to move out of the region. I gotten sick of living in the Southeast because I don't like the weather there. There wasn't a lot of money to be made there. Like by that point, I could look for trucking jobs in other places, and a lot of other places were the same cost of living, but trucking jobs were paying a lot more. And you know, things were starting to get expensive. This is right before COVID, so we didn't know how bad it was going to get, but things were starting to get more expensive, and I was like, I need to move. Like, so I started looking. Blue Max didn't really have any other terminals, so I knew I was going to end up having to leave if I moved. But then there was one point where I got sent to Tennessee. It had been raining a lot, and I was going around a curve, and my trailer, the back wheel on the trailer, actually slipped in mud and slid down into a shallow ditch. Nothing turned over. My load held. You know, the trailer got stuck. I was like, well, shit. Called Blue Max, and they called a tow truck. There actually happened to be a police officer that was right there when it happened. He was like, damn, man, that was kind of crazy. I was like, yeah, it just freaking slipped in. He's like, yeah, I know. So he blocked the road off for me. He was really cool about it. And they called a tow truck. Tow truck got me out. I delivered my load. But by then it was like too late. I ended up having to spend a weekend in Nashville. But my next paycheck was really, really light. And it turns out that Blue Max had, without my permission, without talking to me, without anything, nobody discussed it. Nobody told me this was going to happen. They just took the money. They took the tow truck. They were paying for the tow truck out of my money. Now, you become a company driver for a reason. And that's because you don't want to take on the expenses of driving. Now, I get it if I'd have made a mistake and made a wrong turn or gotten stuck being stupid. You know, cool, but talk to me about it. It would have been my fault. But that was just like almost like a freak accident. And the trailer slid in there. I even have pictures. You could tell that I was on the road, but there was like a mini mudslide, and it just slid into this little ditch, and I had to get towed out. That's something the company should cover. You don't take that out of your drivers, especially without talking to them about it. And they were like, well, we're going to take like $250 from your paycheck, each paycheck till it's paid off. I'm like, look, after taxes, I'm only going to be making like $400 a week. Are y'all out of your minds? And then, you know, the thing that got on my nerves the most was they didn't tell me about it. They just did it. And I was like, all right, I'm done. You know, I left, and I called Crete Carrier, and that was the next company I went to. And that's who I was with for a while after that. I moved to Pennsylvania after that. But, you know, that was my last bit of flatbed trucking. Blue Max was a great company, but I didn't like how they just kind of went behind my back and did that. So if you ever work for them, you know, they're a good company, but if you ever had to get a tow truck, discuss it with them. Be like, hey, this wasn't my fault. I shouldn't be paying for this. So I am still waiting on flour. But yeah, flatbed trucking, pros and cons, you know, that's about it. Also, with flatbed trucking, you're going to have a split axle trailer, and I'm telling you, those are harder to park in a tight space. You're going to need a little more room with a flatbed trailer. And that's because with split axle, it doesn't turn as sharply. So remember that if you're doing flatbed, you're probably going to need a little extra room at the truck stop to park for the night. I wouldn't try to park if I didn't have more than 2 spaces. That gave me enough room to get in. If you're empty, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a load on the trailer, you can get in any parking spot. But if you're loaded, you're gonna need some extra space, because you can flip that load over if you start dragging that front axle. That's it. I'll figure out another video. This was longer than I wanted it to be. But I'm gonna have a long day tonight, get off late. Y'all have a good one.